Hello again. We're here for another episode of Studio Stories. I'm here with James, who is our writer and project producer.
Hello.
Hello. So, we're going to have a little chat about James, about what he does for a job, and also the Over the Wall project, which is one we've worked on fairly recently, a really lovely project. So, we're just going to get into that in a little more detail, as James had a really kind of pivotal role on that one. So just to get started, James, so obviously your role has got kind of two facets to it.
Yeah.
What do you actually do at Katapult?
So I'm a writer and project producer at Katapult. So like you say, it's got two halves to it. Half of my time I spend project producing, so similar to yourself. So keeping things on track, target and budget, making sure that, the right people are in the right rooms at the right time, doing all of that really fun stuff. And then the other half of my time I spend as writer on projects. So supporting the creative team across deliverables where writing is involved.
And how long have you been with Katapult now? It's been a little while now, hasn't it?
I think it's coming up to 2 years. I think it's
Has
my
it flown?
second birthday. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's gone fast.
Yeah, it's flown by.
Good. So what does your day-to-day look like when you obviously you've got two areas of your role. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, well, I guess it really depends on what projects we've got running at the time.
Mm.
Like I say, I tend to try and be quite separate, so I wouldn't be the producer and the writer on one project. I kind of wear different hats at different times. But yeah, when I'm looking after the project, it's kind of very detail focused. It's very making sure we're on track, that everything's running as it should be, that our creative team have everything they need to do their roles, that our clients are really happy with what we're delivering. And then if I'm swapping hats and doing some written deliverables, it's looking at kind of receiving those briefs, drafting some copy, revising that text, just trying to help our creative team get the right words to deliver what we're trying to achieve.
So every day is different.
I think that's the same for everyone though, isn't it? I
I
imagine your days
know.
are very different.
I feel like I've said that before, but it is because with every single person, every day really is different. There is no kind of carbon copy because every project is different. Every kind of like role within each project is different. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the fun, isn't it? Like I love the fact in our work that we get to look at different things and different aspects and kind of lean on expertise across a whole whole range of things. And
Yeah,
yeah, everything is so different.
absolutely. Okay, so now we know kind of what you do for a job and how your role works within Catapult. I thought we'd do some little quick questions so we know a little bit more about you as a person. I know that
Great.
you are very much into your theme parks, which we'll go into a little bit later. But in terms of when you go, would you take a picnic or would you go to a restaurant?
Or restaurant.
Any preferences as to which one?
Which restaurant?
What kind of restaurant?
Because when I go to a theme park, I like to experience the whole package of a thing, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
food that it gives you is part of that. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm there for a long day, I'm definitely got a cheese sandwich in my little bum bag. But like, I would love to experience if they've got like a key dining location. I want to make sure I tick that off.
Okay,
Sorry, that's not a
interesting.
quick fire answer, is it? That's me
No,
kind of.
but it's very interesting to know you have to take a cheese sandwich with you. That's something I
You
didn't
gotta. I think
expect
you've
to come out then.
got to have a cheese sandwich. I've got to have a little sausage roll. Got to
Yeah, nice. Good to know. People might get some tips from that. Are you a thrill seeker or are your feet firmly on the ground?
thrill seeker.
Thought you'd say that. Theatre goer or films? Cinema.
Oh, theatre,
Okay. As a writer, fiction or non-fiction? Or as a
fiction,
reader? Yeah.
fiction
Okay.
for both. I think. Yeah.
Road trip or plane trip?
Road trip.
Okay. And in terms of your role, writing or producing, this is a cheeky one, really.
Is this some kind of performance review? Are you
Yes,
sneakily
absolutely. This is a quarterly review right now.
writing?
Writing. Okay. Good to know. I'll remember that one. Okay. We've got to know you a little bit better, James. We know about your cheese sandwich kind of requirements, so that's good. Got that one noted. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the project that we've worked on recently, which is Over the Wall, which is a wonderful charity, and we've done a really lovely project for them. Can you tell us a little bit more about Over the Wall and who they are?
Yeah, well, Over the Wall are an incredible UK charity. They were founded, I think, back in the 90s, 99, I think it was. And they aim to provide incredible programs and experiences and residential camps for children and young people that have long-term health conditions and their families. And it's they do such incredible work, and I'd really encourage people to like check them out online because they do a far better job on their websites as explaining who they are and what they do. But yeah, it's all about providing children and young people with long-term health conditions opportunities and experiences that they probably wouldn't have encountered otherwise. And
Okay.
it was a really exciting project for us because historically they have toured around third-party sites. They've been a bit nomadic. They've had different venues for their different programs, but they've just been given the lease of a permanent venue. And so now they're creating Over the Wall Campus, and it's been really fun to work with the team on that.
Some barriers are easy to see, but others are not. For more than 25 years, we've been helping young people take that bold first step towards a brighter future. Now we want to go further. More magic, more mischief, more campers building confidence. Come with us over the wall as we bring our vision to life. Oakbrook Camp, our first permanent home. A magical place of discovery and wonder from the moment you arrive. Safe, accessible and nurturing. Planting seeds for journeys of independence. Taking our campers and their families outside their comfort zones with care, support and creativity to play with purpose. A collaboration of therapy, technology, clinical expertise and community in state-of-the-art facilities across a 17-acre site where friendship, food and fun can flourish into confidence. We're harnessing nature with new lights, sounds, textures and activities, creating a canvas where imagination soars and self-belief skyrockets. This is the transformation of Oakbrook, a camp that reimagines not only what young people think they can achieve, but importantly, what they actually do. You can make a difference. You can make the vision reality. You can transform lives with us, because Over the Wall Camp is a better future.
Brilliant. And for us, this was a Helping Hands project, wasn't it? So can you just explain what one of those is?
Yeah. Our Helping Hands projects, we tend to do one a year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's where we donate our services to a cause that's close to our heart. So we do kind of pro bono work for a charity or an organization that really aligns with the world that we want to see. And so yeah, it was one of those for us, and it was really fantastic to do that service for that charity.
And it's, I mean, I worked on it kind of alongside you, so we can kind of both talk about how wonderful it is to be able to work on a project where you can add that kind of passion level where you know you're doing good. And that's really wonderful, especially for such an amazing charity. So in terms of the project, can you tell me a little bit about the project approach?
Yes, yeah. So I guess like you say, they're this incredible charity. They've got this particular challenge that they're dealing with at the moment, which is like, how do they bring their programs to life in a permanent venue? And really, our approach to that was to start by just getting to know them, getting to know this new site, getting to know them not just as people, but also as an organization with particular objectives and visions and goals, to understand their history, and then really start to unpack actually what does a permanent venue unlock for them. And they are incredibly skilled at the work they do in designing these programs and creating these experiences, but they haven't really encountered an infrastructure project like this before. And so really we were adding value on what's some creative direction that this might take on. They have lots of different aspects of the site that they've got lots of different kind of design agencies and partners involved in, but how can we help them create a central thread or a central narrative that runs through that whole place, that makes everything just kind of fit together? Yeah. And so we did lots of work with them early days just to, like I say, understand them. And a couple of things came out really quite strongly, I think, in those conversations. Like you say, you were really part of them. And I think one of the things that really came out was this idea of the unexpected. Things, these are experiences where campers achieve or experience more than they ever thought they could or would, where the volunteers and the staff learn more about who they are and their personalities and their abilities and their practice, and parents see their young people in kind of new lights after these experiences. So we really wanted to launch off from that theme of the unexpected, that kind of joyful unexpected. And then the other thing that we were really conscious of is the site that they have got the lease of used to be a school. And you look at it
Yeah.
and it definitely used to be a school, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like it's red brick buildings, it's like 60s and 70s kind of expansions. Like it looks institutional as you look at it. And what was really lovely in the work that we were doing is we were like, well, when you look at this building, you expect it to do certain things, or it looks like it has a very particular history about it. And we're like, well, that actually sounds really familiar, because the story of the campers engaging on this site have similar attributes where people might have particular expectations about them, or might kind of think particular things about them because of how they appear. And so we were really keen that we drew parallels between the story of this site, the idea that the buildings can start to play back and start to reinvent themselves and start to retell their stories in new ways to really mirror the experience of the campers as well. I think that's a really lovely aspect that we explored in that creative direction work.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, because obviously the breadth of camps that they do, there's quite a breadth of kind of age ranges and also kind of abilities and all these kind of things. And we had to consider those different layers of kind of narrative and design throughout that, so that everybody had something that spoke to them. And we didn't age too far down and we didn't age too far up. But like you say, we kind of took that institutional feel out of it and create something somewhere that was like a warm hug for anyone that arrived. So it was kind of twofold in that it had to be unexpected in lots of ways and create those moments of joy and fun and kind of warmth, but also it had to feel like home as soon as they walked in, because this could be the first time that children had left their parents ever overnight, and similarly for the parents, it's the first time they've left their child. So it had to be completely comfortable and completely, all engaging, and kind of like I say, like a big hug from the off, so that they felt completely comfortable being there on their own for a really exciting kind of weekend, doing something completely new and unexpected. So yeah, it was lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's a really great point as well around we've got loads of different types of people engaging in this building and engaging in these spaces and doing different types of things. And one of the things that we did quite early on was try and define kind of the guest journey. And what was really interesting to do on this project is usually our guest journey would be quite linear on a project. We would talk about kind of the beats of a guest experience in a quite linear fashion.
Yeah.
But actually, on over the wall camps, people come back year after year, or they engage in different ways over the course of their kind of experience. And so we were like, a linear model here doesn't quite work. And so we actually look to the hero's journey, that Greek kind of myth story structure, to be like, let's chart the guest experience or the camper experience on this circular model where we leave the everyday, we encounter the unknown, we face challenge, we kind of discover more about ourselves, and then we return back to the known world. And that enabled us to go, okay, let's take all of these different points on a journey and think, what does the building need to do for those people at those times? And that's where we get some really interesting things where, like you're saying, at the start, it needs to feel like that warm hug. It needs to have really clear wayfinding. It needs to make people feel at home. But then further around their journey, as they start to encounter challenge and kind of experience not necessarily the overcoming of things, but the discovering of their own power, it's like, well, those moments need to have gravity and they need to feel important, and they need to be recognized in a way that isn't just kind of like cuddly or patronizing, but has real weight to it.
Yeah.
And so that was a really interesting exercise we did. And then hopefully a useful tool that we provided the wall team to have as part of that package.
Absolutely. I think we both enjoyed it. I think it's fair to say we both very much enjoyed this project. What were kind of your key highlights looking back? What were things you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I think just getting to adapt the skills that we have in our team to a different type of audience and a different type of experience, and actually seeing how surprising it is that so much of it translates in the way that it does, and that actually, an experience for an attraction or for a theme park or for a ride, actually there's so many really useful nuggets of knowledge there that transfer onto a situation or an experience of this sort. And also learning from, as we do with all our projects, learning from the client themselves as to actually giving us new ways to look at things and new ways to consider things. And also the visuals were lovely. Like the
They
wider
really
creative
were.
team did it. Like Alice, Emily Haley did a fantastic job making it all just look so beautiful.
They really did. And it's always wonderful to be on a project where you're on a call with a client and you see them light up at every point, which is
Yes.
just wonderful. It makes the job kind of really enjoyable to do. So yeah, they did some awesome work on that. You've had a previous job role which I think would have probably helped you in this project because you worked within the kind of the education sector, didn't you, in this kind of thing?
Yeah. So I joined Katapult, like I say, 2 years ago. Before then, I spent about 10 years working for the youth sector. So I worked for various different organisations, different kind of educational bodies, also kind of like government arm's reach bodies, rural charter bodies, designing and delivering programs for children and young people. So some of those really small, some of those kind of national level, but all of them used storytelling as a way to help people better understand who they are, who each other are, and how the world around them operates.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is quite useful to have come with a decade's experience of the sector that they're in to understand kind of the world in which they operate, their requirements of a space, and also the language that they use. I think that was really
Yeah.
helpful. But I was also really conscious that having all of that experience, I didn't want to come coloured. Like I didn't want to come with a pre-assumption of, oh, well, it must be this case then, but actually allowing, as we did, for the site to answer those questions and for our partners to answer those questions rather than just being like, oh, well, if it's a youth program that does X, Y, and Z, then it must be
Yeah.
A,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So lovely to talk about Over the Wall. Like you say, it was a helping hand and we do them once a year. So we'll see what comes next year, who we'll be working
Nice.
with. And we've done some great ones in the past, and that was a lovely one to work on this year. In terms of you again, so James, so in terms of your narrative work, you are by nature an incredibly skilled man because you can flex both producer muscles and your writing muscles. Obviously, that's two different sides of your brain. Do you enjoy kind of using both skills? Can you work? Is it easy to flip between the two when you're working?
Yeah, I really love using them both. It's not always easy to jump between the both. Like we were saying, like, I'll have some days where I'm kind of working in a spreadsheet on financial models or shipping information, and then it's like, yeah, but what is the big picture idea for this? It takes quite a bit of. I have to go out for a walk or have a very hot cup of tea to help me transition. But yeah, I've always had a love of both the creative and the logical. So at university, I studied maths and drama as a joint honours. So I went to the only place I think in the world you could do that at the time, which was
Wow.
Aberystwyth. Love Aberystwyth. Have you ever been to Aberystwyth? It's great.
I haven't, no.
Oh, you should go.
Put it on the list. I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, go to Aberystwyth, see some dolphins. So I did maths and drama as a joint honours, and I looked really in the kind of final years of that degree in like storytelling and engineering and how those two things come together. And one of the reasons that I love our industry and I've always loved themed entertainment is I think it is an embodiment of both of those sides of the brain that I just get so in awe when I visit kind of attractions or I meet with people in the industry and just the incredible things that we create. That there's been this incredibly creative or imaginative thing that has then managed to exist, and it's the coming together of both those sides of the brain that I love about this industry. So actually having a role that is explicitly both in Katapult is really fun. But I think all of us at Katapult have a bit of both going on, don't we? That's kind of why we create the magic that we do.
I agree. I think we, as a kind of definition, we have the kind of creative team and the producing team, but I think there's definitely a lot of overlap there, and that's why we can create kind of some really cool stuff together. And the producer gets to be involved from the start and kind of working it creatively as well, because, like you say, I think we've all got both sides of the brain kind of working through stuff. So that's really fun. How important do you think the role of narrative is in Katapult's projects?
Yeah, well, it's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're an insights and a story-led design agency. So it's only right that narrative sits at the heart of that, I think. And I'm quite conscious that we use narrative to mean quite a few different things potentially at once. And I think largely when we talk about narrative at Katapult, we're kind of operating on two levels. So the first level would be what we call like an experience narrative, which really looks at centering the guest in the experience. So kind of writing what they would encounter, the touch points that they would have over their time in an experience, and making sure that they're at the center of that story. So that's kind of the first level of that, I guess. And then the second level is what is the general story that is happening in the world in which that guest now is, and the way in which those two levels interact with each other, I think is really fun. And it also by having that general layer to it where we're talking about the story of a world or the story of a land, it enables us to create some reasons for things to hang together well, you know? Because I think often we could look at some places where it feels like there's quite a lot of separation, or there's kind of it's difficult to make decisions in some projects because there isn't that sense of, well, in this world, this is what makes sense to happen. And I think when I think about the lands and the parks that I really love, they're the ones that have narrative right at the heart of what they do. And I think
Yeah.
the projects that we work on at Katapult, by having that narrative, both what the guest has to do and gets to experience, but also what the world is like,
Yeah.
really works together.
It's creating that detail, isn't it? So it's not
100%.
it's not just top level, like we're creating kind of the integrity of the story, and like you say, how that comes to life for a guest. That's a really interesting kind of point of view and a way to work on it. What are your favorite kinds of projects to work on when it comes to the writing?
Yeah, my favorite type of projects. This might sound a little bit arty-farty, so I'm really sorry. I'm apologizing in advance and caveating my answer.
That's
But
fine.
I think the writing that I really love engaging with, but also really love doing, like the writing is a byproduct of observation.
Okay.
And so when I think about the books I love, or the films, or the theatre, as I answered in the quickfire quiz,
Mm-hmm.
they always have characters or moments in them that feel really well observed. And so what I really love about the projects that we do, or the particular types of projects that we do, are ones where we start with lots of ideas, where there are lots of different angles. Maybe there are lots of different stakeholders. So we might have clients, brands, investors, us kind of all in a
Yeah.
room. And I really love just observing in those early days of those kinds of projects and just seeing like what is happening, like what kind of ideas are being floated, what kind of conversations are happening, what is the energy of the room and the space, and how might we then kind of start to craft something or sculpt something. So I think my favorite kinds of projects are the ones where before you go in, you've got no idea where it's going to head, and there's so many different things on the table, but there's a really natural and organic, almost discernment process to get the story out and to then be able to find words to do that energy justice, I think is the really fun bit of the writing work that I get to do.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you think of it as fun, and yet some people might look at that and think, oh my gosh, that would be so tricky. It's to take all those ideas from so many different people and distill it into what we call, I guess, the big idea, which is kind of that snapshot kind of
100%.
framework for the whole story and narrative for the project. But getting to that point where it is distilled, that could be quite tricky, but you seem to have created an art out of it.
Yeah,
How did you
I
get it?
guess that's very kind of you to. Like, I imagine it a bit like sculpting. I think sometimes as soon as a word is on a page, people can think like, "Oh, that's it now, that's done." Like,
Yeah.
and then it can be quite scary because you're like, "Oh, I've got to on the first instance find the right word to put down."
Yes. Yeah.
But actually, I don't think we'd approach any other kind of creative in the same way.
True.
We might start through sketching and then we start to revise. It's like I think the same in writing. It's like I just want to get stuff down. I want to try
Yeah.
and just get things on a page that feel broadly right, and then
Yeah.
with our wonderful clients, with our partners, with our stakeholders, whittling it together. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm going to go off and just do it and then I'm going to come back and it's done. It's like this is a collaborative thing that together we do. And it's, I guess, I see my role in that as just facilitating it and finding words for it rather than necessarily I don't know, having the weight of it. Like, because like you say, it could feel quite heavy, I think, otherwise.
Yeah, and there's nothing more unnerving than sitting with a blank piece of paper in front of you, either digitally or physically. And like you say, you have to get just some words out initially,
100%. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it takes that kind of fear away, and you can start kind of rolling a bit more naturally, can't you? Where does your love of writing come from? Is it something you kind of always enjoyed doing?
Yeah, I've always loved stories. Like I, as a kid, would just like devour stories everywhere. And then when I was able to start like telling my own, there was no stopping me. Like I was an absolute keen puppet show producer by the age of probably about 6, and
Amazing.
my family would just have to endure puppet show after puppet show, and I don't know. I look back sometimes and I think, crikey, like the things they had to do for my puppet shows. But you can cut this bit if you want. But there was one. I've just got this really vivid memory of. For some reason, I was wanting to do a puppet show on a desert island, and I don't know if you remember in supermarkets in like the 90s. I don't know if it still happens, but if you bought like apples, they would be on like a
Yeah.
cardboard tray that had like dimples in them.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I marched my mum round the supermarkets of Portsmouth to be like, if there's got to be coconuts on the desert island, and the only way to do coconuts is to cut these dimples out of apple things. And so we'd traipse around trying to. Anyway, so yeah, I've always loved kind of storytelling, and so it's always something that I've done. I've always been involved in kind of theatre. Like I say, when I then did my degree, I looked at kind of playwriting in particular as the kind of drama side of that degree, and I can never shake from my head, and this again might sound a bit crazy. I'm just fascinated by the fact that like we all are living our stories, and there are points where our stories come together.
Mm.
So like the idea that like I might go to a cafe and someone holds a door open for me, and like I've never met that person before. I'm probably never going to meet them again, but in that moment, like our stories connected.
Nice,
Like
yeah.
there's something in that I just find absolutely fascinating. And so being able to explore that through like theatre or film or books is great. And I think that in themed entertainment in particular, why I love it is because we get to consciously create moments where that happens, where these
Yeah.
people's stories come together for a 5-minute attraction or a day-long visit, and suddenly they're there with a purpose. And they might never see each other again. They might not know they're in the same room as each other, but they've all got that memory.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's what I love about stories.
It's a really interesting thought. I've never thought about that everybody will go away. They'll have a different version of that memory, but they will all have the same memory of the same experience, obviously felt in different ways and experienced differently, but they're all kind of in that moment together.
Yeah, but there's so many people, like when people find out that I love themed entertainment, they'll be like, oh yeah, well I went on, I don't know, Nemesis at Alton Towers when I was a teenager or something, and suddenly you can talk about that as a shared experience, even though I
Yeah.
wasn't on the train at the same time as them. Like it just gives kind of like frivolous groundwork
Yeah.
of kind of I just love the idea that we just drift in and out of each other's lives.
How poetic, James. I love
Well,
it.
there you go. Have my moments.
Yeah. Have you got any big kind of writing projects planned for the future?
Actually, over lockdown, I created a series of online like escape rooms and murder mystery puzzles,
Oh, wow.
and I haven't touched those for years. But I really loved exploring kind of narrative writing through those
Hmm.
mediums, and I think I'd love to get back under the bonnet of some of those and kind of revisit them and revise them because they were
Very
great fun
cool.
to create.
Absolutely. So a bit more about you then. So you are a serious theme park enthusiast. How many theme parks do you think you've visited?
Oh gosh, yeah, because I say I've probably visited around 60 is probably where I'd guess. Yeah, and they're mainly European. So I would love to go and do a massive US road trip or go to
Mm,
parks in kind of other continents and countries. But yeah, I'd say around 60. Yeah.
pretty amazing. And which out of all those 60, because that's a lot to choose from, which one has your kind of favorite roller coaster?
Oh, gosh,
How many roller coasters have you been on if you've been to 60 parks?
coasters are probably getting close to 400, probably like late 300s or so.
Wow.
But again, if I did my US road trip, that would skyrocket because US parks have a lot more coasters per park than my like I think my favorite coaster, it's a very, very tricky question to ask a theme park nerd, really, what their favorite coaster is. I would probably say Ride to Happiness, which is at Plopsaland Pan. It's a Mack Rides extreme spinning coaster, and there's something about it that I just find quite beautiful. It's got a free spin element to it, so when you ride it, every time you ride it, you take the elements in a different way because you might be facing forwards or backwards or to the side. It's got a really fantastic layout on it. It's got 2 very good launches. It's got very comfortable trains, very accessible trains. It's got a great soundtrack to it, and it's also got a really nice kind of narrative that runs through it. So it's based on the Tomorrowland festivals that happen
Yeah.
in Europe, and so yeah, it's got some really soft kind of detailed narrative around like harnessing the elements to create happiness. And so as you go through the queue, they're not like hitting you over the head with a story, but you're kind of experiencing the different elements as you queue. And then it's I just think it's great. And it's unexpected for the park that it's in, I would say, to have a coaster that is so like the park is lovely, but to have a coaster that's of that kind of thrill level and has that kind of style to it, I think is fantastic.
Sounds really interesting. Which do you think you've been on the most? Have you been on that one the most, or have you been on, would it be another one that you'd been on ridden more than the others?
It'll probably be a UK park. Like I grew up on the south coast of the UK, and I was very fortunate that throughout my childhood I would go every year to the parks down south, so Thorpe Park, Chessington, Legoland, Paultons Park. So I would probably say it's probably the ridden the most is probably something like the Vampire at Chessington, which is a fantastic kind of refurbished but aerodynamics swinging suspended coaster. But yeah, that again. Chessington was a masterclass in these and noughties of kind of themed storytelling. So I think a lot of my love kind of rises from time spent at Chessington or Thorpe Park when they were on the cusp of kind of creating new lands and new areas and reimagining themselves to be kind of themed and story driven.
Yeah, brilliant. So when you visit an attraction, what are the things that make your day kind of more enjoyable?
If it's got a water fountain, that's
Obviously, so you can wash down your cheese sandwich.
I can wash down my cheese sandwich. But yeah, a good mix of rides and attraction and entertainment. So like, even though I do like my coasters, I do like a thrill. Actually, the parks that I really love have a really solid lineup of coasters and flat rides, family rides, dark rides, entertainment offering. I just like to just have a kind of a variety of things throughout my day. I think that's really fun. Passionate staff that care about where they are and what they're doing. You go to some European parks and the sense of like how culturally significant it is to work at a park, or like generations of the same family have been at a park. And I think you really get the sense of that in some of those places. That's fantastic. And then good operations as well. I don't think there's anything worse than being stood in a very slow queue. So I'm always in awe of teams that can get rides out quickly.
Absolutely. And in terms of obviously working in the themed attraction kind of industry, what do you love most about it? Because obviously it's already a huge passion. What's your favorite thing about working within it?
I think it's being able to collaborate with the people and the brands that have already had a huge impact on my life. So, for example, like Lego is a big client of Katapult's, and so I'm a massive Lego fan. I've got my Lego duck behind my head, but yeah, so being able to be like, oh, I grew up going to Legoland, and now I'm involved with some projects that happen across Lego, and meeting people that are like, oh wow, you created that thing that I loved so much growing up, or you were part of that project that meant so much to me. I think it's just fantastic.
Absolutely. And thinking ahead, which park IP would you most like to work with on the future?
Park or IP? I think park-wise, I've got a massive soft spot for Paultons Park in the UK. I think it's always been a fantastic park. Like I say, I grew up going there. But in the last 10 or so years, it's had an absolute fantastic kind of the way that they're approaching all their investments and their land. So to be a part of their history and their legacy, I think would be wonderful. IP-wise, I was brought up on a diet of good blockbusters. So love to play in like, Back to the Future, Jaws, Jurassic Park, all of those like big chunky blockbuster worlds. I'd love to be able to play in those.
Brilliant. And then the kind of final question that we like to ask everyone, how did you get to be in this industry?
Yeah, I sent an email.
That's all the best career start. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. So something I've always wanted to do, that's probably evident from the conversation that we've had. Did my degree at university then tried to get into the industry at that point and really struggled to find the way in. I wrote to
Yeah.
quite a lot of companies or tried to get kind of apprenticeship roles, but there wasn't really anything on the table at that point. And so that's when I took up a kind of a youth work job, thinking it would be a stopgap, but then really fell in love with that as a sector. So spent kind of 10 years doing that, did some fantastic projects with fantastic people. And then in the role I had last before joining Katapult, we were on a kind of an away day, and someone went, who would phone you up right now, living or dead, and offer you a job on a project, and without even thinking you would accept it?
Yeah.
And I immediately went, Walt Disney to design Disneyland. And then
Yeah.
everyone else went, oh, I don't know, actually. And I was like, oh, maybe that was a political question. I probably shouldn't have told my current employer how quickly I
Yeah.
would leave. But it made me think, like, if I can answer it that quickly, that is probably what I should be, like, that's the world I
Yeah.
should be in. So I reached out to some companies, sent some emails to get advice, thinking about building a 5-year plan. I heard our CEO Dawn interviewed on a podcast and heard her talking about the values of Katapult, the B Corp status of Katapult. They all really aligned with my personal values. So I reached out to Katapult as one of those companies, and I was chatting to Catherine at Katapult, and that 5-year plan suddenly became a 2-month plan. And I interviewed for a job and then started the March after I sent an email in the November. So yeah, I consider myself very lucky and very privileged that I've ended up here, because it's been such a wonderful 2 years, and I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Yeah, like you say in stories and how your life develops and you come to those kind of key moments. I guess that was your key moment. Maybe listening to Dawn on that podcast,
That's
that
it.
was kind of that moment, wasn't it? That changed it all. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you, James. It's been lovely chatting to you,
And you.
as I do most days anyway, but in a slightly different capacity. This has been very nice. Lovely to get to know you a little bit better and obviously learn a bit more about Over the Wall as well, and the role that you do and how you came to be at Catapult. So thank you for your time, and I'll speak to you in about 10 minutes on another call.
See you then.
See you then.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.